Dusk settled over Valinor like a veil of ash, masking the once radiant plains in a half-light fraught with ill omen. The clash at Halthirion and the many smaller skirmishes across the realm had splintered hopes of a swift resolution. Now, as if feeling the world itself tremble under the weight of approaching doom, both loyalists and rebels drew their lines with finality. Along the margins of Lorien's gardens, the once peaceful groves were choked by twisting illusions. Trees stood with drooping boughs whose leaves sported eerie patterns of violet and black, as though tainted by the doubt festering in Ermo's own heart. Maiar soldiers patrolled the leaf-strewn paths, bearing torches lit with pale blue flame, scanning the night for loyalist scouts or stealthy assassins from the Knights of Feanor. Ermo's once gentle demeanor now flickered between resolve and reluctant dread. In the perfumed air of a moonlit clearing, he consulted with Mandos beneath the canopy of a twisted willow whose bark seemed carved from obsidian. Around them, grim-faced captains waited, many wearing the emblem of Knight's Doom, Mandos's cult. Mandos, robed in sable, spoke in low, resonant tones. Our next move must be decisive. The illusions rattle them, but illusions alone cannot break their will. We must unleash the full measure of our might. Ermo nodded, though his gaze strayed among the silent watchers. Manwë's host yet stands. Varda's starlight heartens them, and they persist beyond all reason. This war is not only armies clashing, it has become a test of belief. He lowered his voice. And belief is not so easily broken. Mandos's eyes gleamed in the dimness. Yet break them we must, or be destroyed by Eru's wrath. You know well that if we falter now, there will be no mercy. A hush followed his pronouncement, unbroken until Anaris, the high priest of the Knight's Doom, stepped forward, black robes swirling around his tall frame. My lord Mandos, the cult awaits your command. Our worshippers stand ready to harness the dread energies you bestow. He bowed deeply, and shadows seemed to flicker about him. Only speak the word. Ermo repressed a shiver at the fervor in Anaris's voice. For all his commitment to remaking the world, he had never sought to stand as an object of worship. Yet Mandos's acceptance of devotion had gathered a fearsome zeal that might tip the scales in their favor, or unleash horrors beyond his imagining. Aye, prepare them, Mandos said, voice measured. We move before the next moon's turning. Let Ermo's illusions and my cult's fervor converge to strike a blow from which Manwë cannot recover. In Valmar, the atmosphere felt no lighter. Manwë's tower lights gleamed through the twilight, a beacon for those who yet clung to Eru's will. Beyond the city walls, tents sprawled across a wide plateau. Loyalist forces camped there in a patchwork of mortal, elven, and dwarven contingents. At the base of Manwë's tower, Erwin stood among a small council. She wore a new scar from recent skirmishes with Ermo's illusions, and the pain in her eyes surpassed the mere ache of wounds. Beside her stood two mortal captains, both battered from the earlier battles, and a lone dwarf lord who had journeyed from Owl's Forges. We've lost entire outposts along the southwestern frontier, one captain said, voice filled with exhaustion. Mandos's cult has pressed in with unearthly fervor. They do not fear death. They seem to embrace it. The dwarf lord, tusked beard braided with silver links, uttered a gravelly oath. And we see signs of sabotage in the tunnels. Some dwarves gone missing. Whether coerced or turned traitor, I cannot say. My people stand with Ole, but fear spreads swiftly in the dark. Ero's expression hardened. Each new tragedy struck her heart like a hammer on fragile glass. We cannot fight despair with steel alone. Mandos's cult wields intimidation like a blade. We must give our allies something more potent than illusions. An unshakable cause. She pressed a hand to the hilt of Eldenar's sword, her fallen friend's legacy. If we fail, all of Arda might crumble. The second mortal captain, gaunt with worry, nodded. Lord Manwë calls a great muster of the faithful within 3 days. We will gather whatever strength we can, though how we hope to match the might of Valar turned against us, I do not know. Eros' mind drifted to the memory of Eldenar's final words, urging her not to falter. She clenched her fists. We will do more than match them. We will show the rebellious Valar that Eru's love has not dimmed. If they have chosen darkness, it shall not cloak the entire world. Hidden within the labyrinth of lesser streets and storehouses that surrounded Valmar's grand architecture, the Knights of Feanor moved like phantoms. They had grown skilled at evading loyalist patrols, while avoiding direct confrontation with Mandos's fanatics. True to their own cause, they would commit to neither side, preferring to exploit the chaos for their advantage. In a crumbling courtyard, Maedhros conferred with his lieutenants around a makeshift table. Moonlight glinted off the metal studs in his leather tunic, accentuating the hardened lines of his face. Maglor lingered to the side, half absent, seemingly absorbed in composing a soft lament for the countless dead. Our scouts report that Ermo and Mandos are planning a major offensive, Maedhros said in a hushed tone. Manwë knows it. He gathers his forces to meet them. That will be the pivotal battle of this war. A younger knight, eyes bright with ambition, leaned forward. Then, do we side with neither, as before? Or do we strike one side at the crucial moment? Patience, Maedhros replied. We must appear at the final confrontation on our terms. Let them exhaust each other. When the tide teeters, we shall make our move and claim the spoils. Maglor's voice drifted like a sorrowful wind. Your talk of spoils troubles me, brother. This war rips the very soul from our people. The illusions, the cult, the storms. There may be nothing left to claim if this continues. Maedhros's eyes flicked with a glimmer of empathy, but they quickly hardened again. We made an oath once. We cannot serve another's vow. We must carve our own path, or be swept into oblivion. Would you rather kneel to Mandos as he forges a new doom, or Manwë, who calls down Eru's wrath on all dissent? Maglor had no answer. The Knights of Feanor had traversed so many grey shades of loyalty and betrayal, it seemed there was no untainted cause left for them. And yet, standing idle felt like an even greater betrayal of themselves and of a world unraveling at the seams. True to Mandos's word, the rebellion struck sooner than expected. It began with ominous rumblings of thunder beneath a starless sky. Winds howled across the plains, twisting in unnatural gales. Lightning forked overhead, tinted a sickly greenish hue. From the battered ramparts of Valmar, loyalist centuries looked on in dread. Some murmured that even nature itself recoiled from the war between gods. Then, from the southwestern horizon, phantom armies appeared, as if from nowhere. Illusion woven so intricately that watchers found it impossible to tell real foes from apparitions. Stag-headed beasts of swirling mist charged across the plain, scattering the first lines of loyal scouts. Overhead, the sky rippled with shapes of monstrous wings, illusions that shrieked like banshees. Trumpets blared in Valmar. The call to arms resounded through the city. Under Manwë's direction, a host of elves, men, and dwarfs marched out, determined to hold the line against the swirling illusions. Leading them rode Erone, spear shining under the eerie flashes of lightning. She recited Eldenar's name, carrying his memory as a shield against the fear creeping into every mind. In the midst of the illusions, the cult of Mandos advanced with cold precision. Human soldiers and elven renegades brandished weapons etched with black runes, their eyes glossy with fanatic conviction. At their head strode Anaros, chanting in a guttural tongue, "Night's doom come forth, fate bows to none but we. Let the loyal tremble, for Mandos is their destiny." Bolts of coruscating darkness leapt from his staff, colliding with the loyal lines. Soldiers collapsed, writhing in nightmares spun into physical form. Eron's elves tried to counter with arrows, but illusions confused their aims, and real cult warriors mingled with phantom shapes, making each target uncertain. As chaos spread, Mandos himself appeared on the battlefield, a towering, cloaked figure whose presence seemed to still the very wind. The illusions parted like a tide around him. A hush fell over friend and foe alike as the doomsman raised one pale hand. The black swirl of his cloak caught the glint of lightning, and many a loyal soldier quailed under his silent gaze. "Sick!" Then, in a voice as inexorable as time, Mandos proclaimed, "Doom is upon you, children of Eru. Will you yield your fates willingly, or must they be wrested from your dying grasp?" A tremor ran through the loyal ranks. Some even sagged to their knees, overwhelmed by the sense of finality in Mandos's words. Irene shouted encouragement, her voice straining to rally her troops, but the despair of Mandos's presence cut deep. Just as a wave of panic threatened to swallow the loyal line, a rolling thunderclap tore across the heavens. The swirling illusions of Ermo faltered momentarily, revealing the rebellious host in stark clarity. It was as if some deeper power responded to Mandos's challenge, shaking the very foundation of Arda. Manwe's voice rose from the far side of the field, carried on the sudden gale. "Mandos, you speak of doom, but Eru alone weaves the final thread. Would you cast yourself above the one who shaped us all?" Lightning traced a jagged path through the roiling clouds, illuminating Manwe atop a rise. Regal in his bearing, he glowed faintly with a swirling aura of wind and light, a testament to his authority as Elder King of the Valar. At his side stood Vada, eyes burning with starlight. Behind them, loyalist reinforcements poured forth, brandishing new weapons blessed by Aula. Mandos's cloak billowed in the wind, but he did not flinch. "Manwe, your fealty binds you to a pattern that no longer serves. I claim dominion over what once was Eros alone, the doom of Arda. Let the strong survive in the realm we forge, and let the weak vanish like echoes in the void." A great clamor erupted as the two sides clashed in earnest. Ermo's illusions recoiled like wounded animals, only to renew their assault at Ermo's command. Vines of living nightmare coiled around the loyal forward ranks, and dissonant wails pulsed in the air. At the same time, Vada summoned starry lights that cut through the gloom, banishing illusions and emboldening the hearts of those who stood with her. The field erupted in a tapestry of swirling darkness and sudden brilliance, illusions collapsing into reality where starlight touched them. From the east thundered the sound of metal upon metal. Dwarves under Aule's banner, brandishing newly forged war machines that roared with mechanical fury. Towers of iron advanced on spiked wheels, belching plumes of steam and molten slag. Great crossbows, the size of siege engines, launched massive bolts, crackling with runic power. Their combined might battered the illusions, forcing Mandos's cult to yield ground. Storm mages strained to spoil the new arrivals. She looked around and instantly recognized him. Though Aule himself had not declared open allegiance, his forging had unmistakably armed the loyal side. Whispers said he had spoken privately with Manwe, conceding that neutrality was impossible, while rebellion threatened to unmake Arda's very essence. Amid the chaos, Irone caught sight of Ermo standing upon a jagged outcrop. His eyes were fixed on the swirling illusions, some flickering uncertainly, as though part of him hesitated. She felt a pang of empathy for the Dream Lord who had once nurtured Arda's gentlest wonders. Yet that moment of reflection nearly cost her life. Cultists rushed her flank, and only swift reflex saved her. Grimly, she rejoined the fray, determined to see the struggle through. As the battle raged, both armies realized this conflict would likely end in a single, cataclysmic confrontation. Wounds piled upon wounds, illusions and starlight warred for every patch of ground. Even the Knights of Feanor arrived in the distance, observed by sharp-eyed scouts, but whether to join or betray either side remained uncertain. Desperation hung thick, for all recognized that if this engagement proved inconclusive, Arda itself might be torn asunder. Mandos could taste victory, yet Manwë stood fast. Ermo's illusions battered the loyal lines, yet Varda's starlight refused to yield. And in the thunderous crescendo of war, it felt as though the very breath of Eru hovered on the brink, unseen but potent, ready to descend in unstoppable wrath. Thus ends Part 6. The armies have clashed again in an epic confrontation. Illusions swirl in chaos, and each side stands at the brink of total war. Mandos wields dread authority. Irmo's illusions threaten to consume all. The loyal Valar muster every resource, and the Knights of Feanor watch, poised to exploit the final turn. Darkness and fire rule the battlefield, while all of Arda waits, unaware that an even greater doom, Eru's own judgment, may soon eclipse them all.